everyone. Today we are going to talk about what happens to an object when it falls from the sky to the ground, and think about different ways that we can make an object fall slower to the earth. Has anybody ever heard of a parachute? A parachute is what people use if they're wanting to jump out of an airplane and come down to the earth and be able to slow their fall from the airplane so that they can land safely to the earth. And today we're going to make a couple of different types of parachutes. Now I'm going to turn you around here and show you the supplies that we're going to use. Here are the supplies that we are using to make our parachute. And as we go through making the parachute, I will explain a couple of things. But the first thing that we're going to use is we have to have something that we're going to drop. And I have made out of a pipe cleaner, a long chenille stick pipe cleaner, a little person. And I have chosen different materials to use for my parachute. Here I have just some regular tissue paper. I'm also going to use a coffee filter. I have a plastic bag, and I cut a little square out of some just regular material. You also are going to need a pair of scissors. I did a magic or a permanent marker just so that I could draw a square on some things. I used my ruler so that I could trace and make a square that you can follow the lines as you cut it out. I have some tape, and the only reason I use the tape is because my tissue paper is very, very thin and can rip easily. And so I will show you in just a little while how I reinforced my parachute on the edges so it would not rip as much. And then I have some type of string. Now, yarn would be great, but I, of course, did not have any yarn here at my house. And so I had this embroidery floss, or embroidery thread, so we're going to use that. But you can see I took my chenille stick, and if somebody in your family might have to help, or if you have like a little figurine, say a little G.I. Joe or a little Lego person, or something that's not overly heavy, to turn into whatever you want to use to drop from your so-called airplane or wherever you want to drop it from down to the earth. Now, I will show you, we will get started, and how to make this little guy fall safely to the earth. Here you can see I took my bag and I just traced. I took my ruler, and I felt like a pretty good size would be about 8 inches. So I made an 8-inch square, and then with my marker that I traced along the side of the ruler, and then cut it out with my scissors until you have here, you can see my square. Now, you need to poke 4 little holes, and I just took a pencil. I don't know where I put my pencil right now, but I just poked 4 little holes in each corner, and then I took a little, however long you want your parachute strings to be. I think I measured out a little over 8 inches. I think this was like 12 inches or so. And did 4 of those, and then you fish them through each of the holes until you take the corners and you tie it in a little knot. And there you have what is the beginning of your parachute. Now we're going to do that. Here is our plastic. We're going to do that, or I did that already, with my tissue paper. And you can see that, see if you can look real closely. This one, I don't know if you could tell that or not. This is the tissue paper that can rip very easily. So I just took a little piece of tape and I just taped one side and then folded it over and taped the other side just to give it some reinforcement so that it won't rip. Now, I also took my coffee filter and I poked with my pencil 3 little holes. I didn't think, it's not a huge coffee filter, so I did 3 holes. And you can see I have each one, if I can pick it up. Oops, sorry. Well, there you can see I have the coffee filter. I have the string fished through there and tied. And then I did the same thing with the material. And I found it, especially on the material, it was best to knot it instead of just tying it once, because the material's a little bit thicker and the string will want to come out. But here we have, and I'll do some explaining in a minute, but I took my 4 strings and fished them through, and then at the very end, I attached it to my little friend here so that he would be able to float in a few minutes through the air, hopefully safely down to the ground. To finish off the parachute after I fished and taped my corners, what you do is you gather all 4 strings together, just like this. Find my other one. Gather all 4 strings together like that so that when you turn it this way, it forms a parachute. But you want to make just a little tie right here. You just swirl it around, put it through, and tie it off. And there you have, well, made your parachute, just like this. But how are we going to attach that to our little friend? Pretty easy. Oh, I hear somebody in the background of my house saying hello. Okay, I just got another little piece of string, and I'm just going to take it and I'm going to slide it through here at the tie, and then I'm also going to slide it. Now, since I have made a little person and he has a little round head, I can just fish it through right there. But if you have a little Lego person or something else, you might have to like tie it around its neck or around a leg or something like that. But here you can see, now my little man is attached to the parachute. And when he jumps out of his airplane, he'll be able to float down. You can see all 4 of my different parachutes. The one made with the material, the one with the coffee filter, the plastic bag, and the tissue paper. And I even decided that we would take it a step further, and we'll talk in just a moment, that all of these parachutes are about the same size. But I wondered, would it be any different if I made a larger parachute? Because does anybody know how a parachute works? Well, let me show you here. When a parachute falls through the sky and travels down to the earth, the object, if it didn't have a parachute, an object would fall very, very, very fast down to the ground. But when you add a parachute on top of the object falling, it spreads out through the air and it gives something called air resistance. And that happens when an object pushes, as it is falling, it pushes against the air, which slows the object, slows it down, and it falls gently to the ground because the air is pushing up against the parachute as it falls through the air. You can almost feel this. I don't know if you can see my hand. If you take your hand and go back and forth in front of you, you can feel the air pushing against your hand. And that is what happens when the parachute glides down to the ground. It slows it because the air underneath is pushing up to allow the parachute to float softly, gently down for a safe landing. Now let's put our air resistance into practice. Now before we do that, I've got a little man, and we are going to see what happens to this little guy, poor thing, when he falls from the airplane without using a parachute. Now, it just is going to go very quickly down to the ground. Now, let's do it together. And I'm going to take this first parachute. We're going to see in a minute if any of the parachutes work any better than the others. So we're going to start here, and I'm going to count to 3 and let go and see how the parachute helps him. So are we ready? Help me count. 1, 2, 3. Wow, look at that. Now, this little guy was saved. Let's see, here's the plastic bag. Let's try it with the plastic bag and the cloth. All right, are we ready? 1, 2, 3. Well, the plastic bag still worked a little bit better because it was lighter than the cloth. And the lighter the object is, the slower, I guess, that it falls. Okay, let's try the coffee filter and the plastic bag. Are we ready? 1, 2, 3. The plastic bag still came in for a little bit slower of a landing. Now I'm going to try my tissue paper. Oh, it got a little bent. That's okay. Oh dear, wait a minute. It's tangled. There we go. All right. I'm having little technical difficulties here. Sorry, guys. All right. Here we are. Let's bring them up. We're going to go 1, 2, 3. Oh, the tissue paper didn't work too well. I don't know if it's because it was tangled, but how about if we take our paper, our plastic bag, and I get my larger parachute. Now this time what I'm going to do is, because it's larger, it's going to help it to have a little bit more air resistance pressing up against the parachute. So I'm going to take it up to a little bit higher. This now might not be a good idea. You might need to have some help at home. But on the count of 3, I'm going to drop, and let's see if the larger parachute works a little bit better than the smaller tissue paper one, and the still the same size plastic bag. Are we ready? Help me count, please. 1, 2, 3. Wow, look at there. They both worked well, but because the tissue paper was cut into a larger square, it gave it more air resistance pushing up against the parachute. So as the object traveled down, it worked with or against one another and slowed the parachute down. Have fun.